Welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about why there's this link between women, or in particular girls in particular, who have grown up in chaotic environments, grown up in emotional turmoil or in environments with a lot of stress, or maybe with emotionally immature parenting, why there's this link between that and growing up to have autoimmune disorders. So there's quite a bit of evidence now that's been gathered for this that's showing this link. So let's break down what is really kind of underlying it. So the connection has to do with two things. One is immune system. We'll talk more about that in a moment, and kind of the link between immune system and stress. And the other is hormones and hormone balance. So when we experience stress, this is any kind of stress and at any age, our body suppresses all our other systems in that moment. So I'm sure you're familiar with the idea of fight or flight, of your body thinking that it needs to survive, even if it's just stress caused by hearing a parent shout or hearing arguing or opening an email. Our life is not actually in danger, but our body thinks it is. So in that moment, everything else is kind of instructed to pause and to shut down, including things like our digestion, which is why there's a link between high stress and IBS, and various other bodily systems. But one of the systems that shuts down or pauses a bit is our immune system. So if as a child you are repeatedly exposed to stressful experiences, so whether that is loud noises, I gave that example of kind of shouting or maybe arguing parents, for example, or maybe you see a parent, your mother or your father, very dysregulated a lot of the time. Maybe they're very worried a lot, very anxious. Maybe they're depressed and unavailable, and that's going to feel stressful to you. Maybe there's just different dynamics that, especially if you were born quite sensitive, that you were really tapped into. Dynamics that were maybe difficult that you took responsibility for, dynamics that you maybe wanted to try to manage. All of this is experienced in the body as stress, and all of it activates our central nervous system. It activates our fight or flight system, fight, flight or freeze system. And therefore the immune system kind of goes offline in that period of time. So if you imagine this happening over and over again, maybe in kind of small doses, this is why childhood trauma has such a big impact, even when it's small t trauma, as people say, because actually it's this accumulation. It's like your nervous system is in small ways being activated and your immune system is in small ways being suppressed over long periods of time, maybe throughout your childhood years, whilst your immune system is developing. And so then when we become an adult, we've actually maybe had decades of these small moments of immune suppression, and that can lead into all sorts of immuno disorders and chronic health conditions when we're adults. Now the other link is hormones. So again, this exposure to stress, not being able to feel fully relaxed, it disrupts our hormone balance. So what it does is it triggers our body to either make too much progesterone or not enough, or too much estrogen or not enough. And so we find ourselves in this imbalance as we're growing. And over time, especially if this is happening definitely during childhood, but also in adolescence, when your hormone composition is really kind of building, and that's when things are really becoming more solidified, then it means that when you become an adult, you can find yourself with chronic hormone imbalance. And that can show itself in various ways for women. So, there's a range of kind of gynecological ways that might show itself. But also it can show itself in other ways with mood issues, with very high sensitivity to stress itself, which is again is in part linked to hormones. And so this all kind of contributes to having these immune disorders, these kind of chronic symptoms that feel like they maybe have come out of nowhere, but actually when we track it back, we can see their connection to your early life and to stress. So the reason that this is useful is because as part of managing symptoms, as part of managing any kind of things that you may have been diagnosed with, it can be useful to be doing childhood trauma work, to be kind of working through some of that stuff, some of those experiences, and ultimately to be trying to get your nervous system to a place of safety. Because as a child, you didn't experience that safety, which is why all of these things have happened that I've just been talking about in this video. And so getting your nervous system back to a state of safety, of course, it doesn't erase that, it doesn't erase those experiences, but it can definitely help your body to kind of restore itself, essentially. And so this can be a really good complementary treatment to anything else that you might be doing or exploring. But sometimes it's easy to forget this component, the kind of emotional chaos, and sometimes emotional chaos isn't loud. Sometimes emotional chaos is just a parent that is completely not attuned to you, a parent that is not interested in your inner world, a parent that profoundly misunderstands you. This can feel like emotional chaos too. Emotional chaos can be those family dynamics that are confusing, that leave you feeling responsible but helpless. All of this can be emotional chaos, right? Sometimes that word chaos can bring to mind this idea of shouting, screaming, throwing. It can be that as well, but sometimes it's far more subtle, but the nervous system is experiencing it as chaotic. And so sometimes we can kind of forget that component when we're thinking about physical health issues, but it's a really important part of managing symptoms and learning to manage stress, because if you've been raised in this kind of environment, chances are your alarm system is going to be really, really sensitive. It's like if it doesn't quite work with the burglar alarm analogy, because I guess that's a machine, but maybe, if you're repeatedly sounding an alarm over and over again, it might be more easily activated. And that's exactly what happens with our nervous system. And if we've grown up in these kind of stressful environments, we've been exposed to too much stress, more stress than we were able to handle, then it might be that, learning how to manage stress in a different way now is going to, again, really help with any conditions that you find yourself facing. So I hope that this has been useful. My name's Sian Morgan-Crossley. I'm a psychotherapist and I specialise in helping people heal from emotionally immature parenting. If this has been useful, then do like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.